This is the Para Cave Podcast, proudly brought to you by major sponsor Parramatta Leagues Club, home of the Eels, and also home of Jack's Pale Ale.
Welcome to another episode of the Para Cave Podcast. And now over to your host, Troy Warner, broadcasting live from the world-famous Para Cave.
And yes, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Para Cave Podcast. Troy Warner here, and it is preliminary finals weekend, the game before the grand final. Certainly very tense for those fans that are supporting those teams. And look, for myself, today, as of recording, it is the day after the 2022 prelim final where Parramatta beat the Cowboys up there in Townsville, so I know what a prelim final is all about. Joining me once again is Ben from the Corner Post. Ben, mate, how are you going?
Mate, I am going great. It has been it's been a good week down in retail shopland. A lot of footy fans coming in, getting all their gear and their merch, which we love to see. Kids have school footy colours day tomorrow, I believe, or jersey day.
Okay, fair enough.
So a lot of kids getting out there with their para gear on, which we love to see.
Yes.
Your kids doing anything for the footy day, or?
I'm not 100% sure. I don't know, but this week is the last week for school, I think. So yeah, they probably might do something on the Friday. But unfortunately, my daughter Ella, she's a Penrith supporter, so no doubt she'll be in something Penrith if they do something. But
That's all right. We won't hold that against her.
Well, no, that's true. They are playing this weekend, and they have been successful for the last 4 years. So she's got that over me at the moment. I'm still waiting to witness a Parramatta grand final victory, even though we have won 4 before. But that was... Well, next year will be 40 years ago since our last one, so she's got it over me at the moment. But let's get into these games. The Sharks take on the Storm, first of all, down in Melbourne at Amy Park on Friday night, 7:50pm. And look, this should be a cracker of a game. These are two rivals. First of all, let's go through the ins, because there's some big ins for the Melbourne Storm. Who is in for the Melbourne Storm this week?
We've got Jerome Hughes and Ryan Pappenhausen starting. Now, they are two huge ins. They'll be very notable for sure. We've also got Sean Bloor coming in on the bench, and we've got Faialago in the reserves, who you wouldn't expect to play. But obviously the standout notable ins there are Hughes and Pappenhausen. How do you think they'll go?
Yeah, look, it's going to be interesting obviously Pappenhausen had been out for concussion protocols, I think it was. So not so much an injury. But Jerome Hughes, he is the big interesting one for me, I think, because he did have that shoulder injury, and now the latest one he suffered, I think it was only about 3 weeks ago, was the broken forearm. So he is coming back quite quickly. I expect him to wear something like a big Mal Meninga arm guard or something like that. Whether the arm guards have improved these days compared back to then. But match fitness, it is a massive game. Personally, if I was Craig Bellamy, I probably would have trusted Jonah Pezzett to play the biggest game of his life in this prelim final, and maybe wait a week for the grand final for Jerome. What are your thoughts about that one?
Yeah, look, I'm not sure if Jonah really deserved to miss out. He has been dropped to the reserves, so he's not even been left on the bench as cover just in case something does go wrong there. Same story there for Grant Anderson as well. He's been dropped out into the reserves. Now, of course, they can obviously make some adjustments to that starting lineup and bench lineup if need be. I'm not sure Jonah deserved to be dropped. if Melbourne loses this game, he's played his last game for the Storm, possibly, potentially, unless they re-sign him. Obviously, there's been a lot of transfer talk when it comes to Jonah, links to the likes of Canberra and Parramatta.
I think Newcastle as well, potentially.
Yeah, I think Newcastle got Sandon Smith though, didn't they? So I'm not sure if they'd really need Jonah with Dylan Brown there as well. But
could chuck Sandon Smith
into
hooker.
Is he playing hooker there? I thought they would put him in the halves.
Well, you would expect him to play in the halves, but I mean, if you got Jonah Pezzett, then you could probably put him at hooker maybe. I don't know if that'd make him too happy, but that's just a thought.
That seems like a bit of a minefield for the Knights to negotiate there. So maybe we better get Jonah in at Para instead. I think that sounds like a better idea.
It does sound quite good. Well, the Melbourne Storm, they do have what most people would say the best 1, 6, 7, 9 in the game. Obviously, Ryan Papenhuyzen, Munster, Hughes, and Harry Grant, the captain of the Melbourne Storm. What about the Cronulla Sharks? Have they got any big ins or massive outs in their side this week?
They've got a few players named to the reserves who you probably don't expect to see some game time. Moeen Harodi maybe gets a little look in, but I don't think so. I think they're pretty set on their squad. Oregon Kaufusi, former Parramatta Eel, comes into the side on the bench. I think he's a huge inclusion. Tom Hazelton falls out of the side though. Yeah. Now, I love Oregon, but I'm not sure I would have dropped Hazelton for Oregon. I think Hazelton has been in some quite good form of late, so it makes you think there might have been a niggle there, might have been a little injury or something they didn't want to risk him with.
Well, I can actually tell you that, unfortunately, he only lasted 4 minutes against Canberra last week, so it was a HIA protocol, so that is why...
Okay, well, that makes more sense.
Yeah, that's why he isn't playing this weekend.
Yeah, well, in saying that as well, though, like I said, Oregon is a really great player. He's somebody that I didn't want to see leave Parramatta at the time that he did. I think he'll do a great job for them there. I must have missed that one on Hazelton with the HIA, so apologies for that one. But we'll see how Oregon goes there. The rest of the reserves there are probably not really notable. But we do have the match officials here as well. We've got Ashley Klein in at referee. That'll be a big one. We all know he loves Melbourne, so unfortunate for Sharks fans there, potentially. Chris Butler's in the bunker as well, and we've got Sutton and Ziggy P on the touch judges as well. Now, I reckon we open up with...
Just quickly on the referees. As you said, we've got Ashley Klein refereeing this game, and we'll get into it later, but we've got Grant Atkins refereeing the Brisbane-Penrith game. Which of these two games do you think is like the grand final qualifier for the referees? Do you think Ashley Klein will hang on to the grand final referee appointment?
Look, I think he probably will. I think Grant Atkins is probably who I would prefer if I'm looking at a referee that I can consider to be more neutral, I guess, in lack of a better word. Ashley Klein's probably got the experience over Grant. I'm not quite sure what their difference of games is and big game stats and whatnot, but I believe Klein was in Origin this year too, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so maybe you do go with Klein there just for the experience side of things, but I think maybe if it ends up being Penrith and Melbourne, you definitely go with Klein. Maybe if it ends up being Brisbane and Cronulla, you have a look at Atkins. I think he's probably better suited for the way that those two teams play. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Look, I think at the moment, and what everyone has been thinking, is that Ashley Klein is the number one referee at the moment, but he has made some interesting calls over the last few weeks. So
he's been involved in a lot of controversy, that's for sure.
Well, that's it. There was that one in the Canberra-Brisbane game with Hudson Young being sin-binned for having a go at Reece Walsh, which we see each and every week from a number of players. So that was a controversial one there, and I'm pretty sure there was one last week in the Penrith Bulldogs game where Dylan Edwards was just penalised, I think it was, for the tackle on Viliami Kikau without the ball when he charged it down. So look, every week, I mean, there always is a few calls that are controversial, but it just seems that over the last few weeks it has been in Ashley Klein's game. But I do think the NRL think that Ashley is the number one referee. But it'll be interesting to see these games. It could be a prelim final for the referees as well. With the Sharks heading down to Melbourne, do you think, with the Sharks heading down to Melbourne, off the back of two big wins. Now, probably last weekend's win was probably maybe an upset against the minor premiers. The week before, they were at home against the Roosters and they beat them. Do you think that will give them confidence going down there to give Melbourne a good shake and win the game and a third big upset?
Yeah, look, I'm happy to call both those wins upsets. I definitely feel as though the Roosters beat themselves rather than Cronulla beating them, but they did have a big, huge turnaround against Canberra and came through with the big upset win. I think they will have the confidence. I think confidence is everything for sure. I will say, and I know it's a big call, if they do get through Melbourne and they get through Melbourne quite comfortably, I would have them as my premiership favourites. Okay. I think the way that they're rolling at the moment, it's looking like they've found another level and they've found something that for some reason they weren't bringing out in the regular season. But if they manage to continue upsetting teams in their home grounds outside of their own environment, like they have with Canberra, for example, I don't know that you could necessarily write them off in a grand final. I think it would be a hell of a story, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, it certainly would be, and look, no doubt momentum is a massive thing, and that's what the Sharks have at the moment. The other side of the coin, Melbourne, they've had the week off to rest their injuries and not had momentum. Do you think that's going to hinder them, or do you think it will be just their experience that will get them across the line, having that week off as well, giving Jerome Hughes another week to come back? Will Melbourne benefit?
Well, I think this is the key to the game. I think if they've rushed Hughes back too soon, it doesn't really look like they've allowed for cover on the bench in case he or Pappenhausen goes down. You could reshuffle that side in a few different ways, but if both of them turn out to have problems, I think you're looking at a bigger problem there. That's probably where the game lies for Cronulla. I mean, they're going to go out there and they're going to play their own game and they're going to play the way that they play the game. But it really rests on Hughes and Pappenhausen for my money.
Okay, not Cameron Munster?
Well, Cameron Munster for sure as well, but I mean he's been there this whole time as well. So the big difference here is Hughes and Pappenhausen. So it's going to rest on how they perform in the game. Will it come back to bite them on the butt that they didn't put Pezzett on the bench? I hope not, for their sake. But look, I definitely would have been going with Pezzett somewhere in that roster just in case, because it is a very, very fast turnaround for what was meant to be a longer-term injury for Hughes. So I'm very interested to see how that goes. I think he's got all the ability there within himself to be able to do that, to come back from that kind of injury and play in such a huge game. You never want to wish injury on anybody, but it wouldn't surprise me if he didn't get through this game at full fitness, because he's definitely not going into it with full fitness.
Well, speaking of Jerome Hughes, no doubt the Sharks will target him in defence, and they also have that attacking football that they are playing at the moment. No doubt he'll have the big forwards running at him all night long just to test that shoulder and test that arm, don't you think?
That's exactly what I'd be doing. I'd be sending Fanua Blake straight his way. I don't think he's going to be trying to get in and tackle a big fella like that. Yeah, look, I think that's where the Sharks possibly win it. I think they try to go up the middle and try to target those two as much as they can, knowing that they're not going to be at 100%. But then again, those two players are absolute consummate professionals, so they're gonna be able to handle it if they do. It's going to be a very, very interesting battle, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, definitely 100%. Now, key players from both sides. We've spoken a little bit about Melbourne, so we'll get to them in a second. But Cronulla, who are the key players do you think will be for Cronulla in this game? Who needs to stand it up? We've seen over the last couple of weeks Trindle and Hines working very well together and getting the job done. And obviously that's given them confidence because, as I said before, we know that Nicho Hines has copped criticism in big games before, so those last couple of weeks would have given him confidence. But who else do you think in the Cronulla side is key to victory?
I'll put Fanua Blake up there. I think going on what I just said there, he's probably the big body that they're going to target to be going through Hughes and Munster. The standout choice for me is Hines. We spoke on the last show about how he's really turned his form around, especially last week against Canberra. He needs to be the man to step up and take this game because I think he's got the most potential out of anybody on the park to be able to step up and take the game. I think he's the bigger standout star for his team rather than like a Hughes or a Munster. I think there's so many stars in Melbourne. There's so many players that can step up and take that game, whereas in Cronulla, you're purely looking at Hines. Mulatalo, I think, is going to have the advantage on the wing. So I think they'll be going through him a lot through the game. But for me, it's Hines. Hines has got to step up and show why he won that Dally M medal a few years back.
Yeah, look, I agree with you there. Also, Adam Fanua-Blake, as you said before, Nicho Hines. The other player that I think will have a key role in a Sharks victory is Blake Brayley as well. He can do that battle against Harry Grant will be one to watch. He has had some darts out of dummy half. He knows when to run. He's had a hell of a season. Billy Burns in the second row as well, the Park spaceman. He scored a try last week, bit of an unsung hero. And Toby Rudolph as well, starting prop. He's scored a try against the Roosters there a couple of weeks ago. He seemed to have a sort of new lease of life at the moment. One player I think has been a little bit quiet of late is Will Kennedy at the back. We haven't seen him, I don't think, light up the field as we have seen him before do that. So I'd like to see him get a little bit more involved in the game. I think the Sione Katoa will be a target for the big tall timbers on the Melbourne side for kicks across field because he is obviously a little bit shorter than those. Ronaldo Mulatalo, he can definitely jump up. That is for sure. We've seen that in the past. Moving on to the Melbourne side, I mean, you take your pick in this team as to who's the key for them is for victory. I mean, I mentioned them before, the 1, 6, 7, 9. Is there anyone else outside those players that you think are key for victory for Melbourne?
Yeah, probably Coates. I think Coates and maybe Eli Katoa. I think they're two very big boys who do very great things for that side. I feel as though Eli Katoa in particular is very underrated when it comes to that Melbourne side. It seemed like when he was playing for the Warriors a few years back that he was a standout star. And since he's gone to Melbourne, he's continued on with that form. But because the players around him are also good, it looks like he's just fit into that organisation rather than taking it over in the way that he was at the Warriors. But I think he's been brilliant this season. I think he's had a phenomenal season for Melbourne. I reckon he's got the ability to take the game on as well. Coates, obviously, probably the best player in the league when it comes to the high ball. Mulatalo would be close behind him as well. It'll be an interesting battle between those two. I'm not quite sure if they're matched up. Do we know if they're matched up for this week, or are they on opposite ends?
Coates and Mulatalo, I think they'll be on opposite sides.
Yeah, so they're both going to be going up against a lesser player as well. So those guys are guys to watch for sure. Eli Katoa, one to watch for sure for my money. But it really just comes down to Pappenhausen and Hughes to see what they do and how they go on their returns.
Well, outside the Big Four in Melbourne, and it's strange to say the Big Four after, 2009, I guess, for a Parramatta fan. But outside of those players, obviously, because we know what they are going to deliver, I think, actually, Stefano Utoikamanu, this is probably, outside of Origin, this is probably his biggest game that he will play in his career at the moment, because he's up against Adam Fanua-Blake, one of the premier front rowers of the game. He's moved down to Melbourne from the Tigers, and he did make Origin this year, I think. So, obviously, outside of Origin, this will be his biggest club game that he will play. So I'm looking forward to seeing how he will stand up. This year, these two sides have played a couple of times, once at Melbourne and one in Sydney at Cronulla Shark Park. So the first time they met, it was a victory to the Sharks, 31 points to 26 at Shark Park in front of 11,500 people. So it was 5 tries all. It was just the goal kicking that let the Melbourne Storm down there. And the other time that they met down in Melbourne, the most recent, was 30 points to 6 down in Melbourne, and that was round 17. So it's one apiece so far this year. Yes, and the Sharks, they are the form side leading into this game. They've won, I heard a stat, they've won something like 7 out of their last 8 or something ridiculous like that. But I mean, the Broncos, the Storm lost to the Broncos and Roosters previously. That Roosters loss was a little bit of a strange one there. No one saw that one coming, I don't think. And I think that Broncos game, they let players rest in that one.
Yeah, what I find interesting, just going back to their previous matchups, in the first matchup, Jerome Hughes featured for 80 minutes in that game, and Pappenhausen as well for 80 minutes in that game, and both of them completely failed to stand out in those two matches, in that match, sorry. But then going up about 6 weeks later, in the next matchup, both of them were absolute standouts. So it kind of gives you actually, I'd say probably Hughes a bit more of a standout than Pappenhausen there, but it kind of gives you a tough form guide to check there, because it seems like potentially there is no real standout when it comes to the previous two performances. If you're looking at them overall, I think Munster's been quite good in both of those games as well. It's really hard to pick, because usually you go back and you look at the form guide and look at how the teams have matched up previously, and you sort of get a clearer picture. But it really just sort of boggles your brain with this one.
Well, speaking of boggling your brain, what do you got for a score prediction of this game coming up, first of all?
Oh, I'm going to have to give 2 here, I think, because it's so hard to pick, because you just don't know what Melbourne team's going to show up. If the Sharkies were to get over the line, I'd say it's probably going to be a close one from the start, and then I'd say they'll sort of pull away with it at the end. So I'll say if the Sharks were to win, I want to say 28-16 maybe. But my heart and my brain are telling me two different things here. My brain's telling me it's probably going to be a Melbourne whitewash. I hate to say, because I'd love to see the Sharkies get there again. But I'm gonna say Melbourne 38-12.
All right, I'll go 26-18 to Melbourne. Like you, I would like to see the Sharks make it again to a grand final. They've only won one, and funnily enough, that was against the Melbourne Storm back in 2016. What about a first try scorer and an anytime try scorer?
I'll go first try scorer. I'll say... Oh, I'm stuck here between Fanua Blake and Eli Katoa, so maybe just take your pick there on who you want. Anytime try scorer, I guess I'll take the other one. Whoever isn't the first try scorer. Give me Mulatalo and Coates as well. I think they're pretty much a shoe-in for a try or two. Man of the match, what do you reckon, Troy? Man of the match?
Well, just first of all, my first try scorer, I will go, I think I'm going to go for a sneaky dummy half dart from close to the line. I'm going to go Harry Grant as the first try scorer. And at any time, I will say KL Iro for an any time. Man of the match, look, I'm going to go Cameron Munster. If Melbourne are to win this game, I think he will have a massive game, especially down there. He will have to do probably more than what Jerome Hughes will have to do, I guess, because... of Jerome's injury, so I guess he will play the game cautiously a little bit, so I think Cameron will be featured a lot in this game, so I'm going to go Cameron Munster. What about yourself?
Yeah, I'll go Munster as well for the Storm if they were to win. If it's going to be the Sharkies winning, give me Mulatalo.
Okay, yep, nice. Yeah, well, if the Sharks win, I'll say Blake Brayley. There you go, as man of the match. Any other thoughts about this game? Final thoughts about this game, Melbourne and Sharks?
Look, honestly, I'll be glad once this game's done. It's been such a difficult game to sort of prepare for because, like as I've said a couple of times now, you just don't know what Melbourne's going to show up. You expect the Melbourne to show up that you expect to see in a preliminary final, but that lineup has just chopped and changed so much lately that you're just unsure. And this Sharks team has been absolutely phenomenal. So I'll be glad once 80 minutes is done. I think we'll have a clearer picture once 40 minutes is done. Hopefully it's a good game. Hopefully we get a Sharks win.
Yes, we'll just have to wait and see. That game on Friday. And on Sunday, moving to the next match, it is the Broncos taking on the Panthers on Sunday, 4:05 p.m. up there at Suncorp Stadium. 52,500 people there. It will be a sellout. It's almost got like a bit of a New South Wales versus Queensland feel, a bit of an origin feel about it, being, I guess, the Broncos up against the Panthers. Now, a little bit interesting this weekend because the prelim finals are split. Usually they're played on Saturday and Sunday, but for some reason the AFL Grand Final... Well, not for some reason. The AFL Grand Final is on Saturday. For some reason, the NRL have split these to Friday and Sunday. So the winner of the Friday game gets a bit of a 2-day advantage going into next week. First of all, what's your thoughts about the split prelim finals on Saturday and Sunday, and do you think it would have mattered if the AFL Grand Finals played on Saturday? Do you think it would have mattered if the prelim final was played at night time?
I think it's convenient that Melbourne are playing on the Friday night and not the Sunday. I think that's made absolute perfect sense for the Victorian government side of things. The only thing I will say on the AFL is that it is a tremendous shame that my favourite Orange team isn't playing in that game. Otherwise, I probably would have been down there checking it out myself. Bit of an unfortunate end to our season there, but that's the story for another day. Look, I don't mind the split personally. It's interesting. It's different. It does raise a few eyebrows. I have had a few people this week asking me what that's all about. It does make sense that they want to split that up. there.
Yep.
You don't want to be fighting for TV time with something that you're not going to beat. So it's good.
Yep. No, fair
It's
enough.
interesting. I think they've conveniently placed the Melbourne game in the Friday slot there. People are probably gonna go out on the town and get on the piss, and they're not gonna back up a NRL game the next day on a Sunday 4 p.m. So you probably got the formula right here.
Yep.
It is odd, but I think it's right.
Yeah, no, you probably are right there. Have the NRL all to itself on the Friday, and then the AFL on the Saturday, and then the NRL again on the Sunday, all to itself. Now, to the two teams, the Panthers and the Broncos. We'll start with the Panthers because they're really easy. They have got no changes to their side that played last week and I think the week before as well. So very easy for that one. For the Broncos, though, they have a couple of big ins. And they've got a couple of outs as well. One which was unfortunate because he'd been playing some really good footy while these two players that are coming back were out injured. And obviously the big out for the Broncos is Pat Carrigan, who is suspended. So to the Broncos, Adam Reynolds, he is back as captain and starting in the number 7 jersey. Also Ezra Mam, who got injured at the same time as Adam Reynolds, same injury as well, the hamstring. He is on the interchange bench, number 14. Ben Hunt moves to 5'8". That was probably that was an easy one to put Ben Hunt at 5'8", with, unfortunately, as I mentioned, Billy Walters, he's done an ACL, so unfortunately he's going to be out for 9 months. So what are your thoughts? I won't ask you the thoughts on the Penrith team changes, because there is none, but the Brisbane side, what are your thoughts on that one?
Look, one thing I will say, in the lead up to to this week's game, sorry, Reynolds coming back has been such a huge talking point that I feel like it is completely overshadowed the injury to Billy Walters. I feel like I have heard absolutely nothing about Billy all week, which is really unfortunate because, as you say, he was having a great season and he did deserve to have a bit of attention, media attention put on how great of a season that he was having. It's got to the point where in our notes that we've got written down here, I'd completely glossed over the ACL altogether because I just haven't heard about it. I've completely forgotten that it happened. So I think that's really interesting there. It probably shows a level of respect that the media does have towards Adam Reynolds, because to completely gloss over Billy altogether like that, it's really interesting and I guess unfortunate for him, but it does go to show how big of an impact Adam is going to have on this game, or potentially going to have on this game. The one that I want to talk about, though, is Ezra Mam. Is he on the bench for Reynolds cover, do you think?
Yes, potentially. Because as we know, hamstrings can be pretty fussy injuries, so you never know how long it is since you've done it, if you're going to be coming back and it's going to be 100% right.
Because we did see those two both do a hamstring at the exact same time on the exact same play, which is
that's right,
absolutely bizarre.
Yeah, freakish. I've never seen that before. It could also be cover for the hooker as well, Corey Pakes as well, so he may get a bit of a break during the game. You probably see Ben Hunt move to hooker and then Ezra Mam go into the 5'8" spot, so that may also happen as well. So I guess he could be cover for Reynolds. It could be cover for Corey Pakes as well. Not cover, but a interchange for Corey Pakes as well when he
a potential option there. Yeah,
goes off for a spell. It is a bit of a disrupted side when it comes to those players coming back. So, but they obviously know how the team plays in that one. And as we mentioned before, the referee for this game is Grant Atkins, so he is going up against Ashley Klein for the grand final. It'll be interesting to see there. Look, let's get to some talking points about this game. Now, the Panthers, first of all, we'll start on those. Obviously, they're going to be confident after playing 2 rounds of finals footy. Usually they're finishing in the top 4 and winning that first game and then having a week off like the Broncos this week. Do you think it'll be business as usual, or are they eyeing next week, do you think, potentially?
I do have a talking point with the Panthers for this game, something that I do want to look out for. Before we get into that, though, I will just mention, because we've glossed over it a little bit there, Xavier Willison has been brought onto the Broncos bench as a replacement for Pat Carrigan. So one that we did forget to point out there. But my interesting point here for Penrith, it's actually Isaiah Yeo and their young centre over there, who both did come off with injuries in last week's match. Do you reckon they're ready to go, or what do we think there before we get into the bigger talking points?
Well, I think that was actually Liam Martin who left the field early. I think it was in the 72nd minute.
Sorry, it was Liam Martin. My mistake.
Yeah, and crouched down in the tunnel. He did say on Fox after the game that he was fine. He was all ready to go for next week. There was nothing there. Look, I dare say...
Yeah, but to be fair, so would I.
Yeah, look, I do think that at the time it was a little bit of smoke and mirrors, just to get the meter off your back going into this game. Look, maybe he'll be painkillered up and ready to go. Who knows the extent of that injury, but I think he'll be right to play. Casey McLean was the other one as well.
Yep.
Yeah, look, I think if those two players weren't ready to go, then Coach Ivan Cleary wouldn't have named them in such a big game, I don't think. So I think because for Casey McLean, you could have put Alamotti into the centres and brought in Tom Jenkins, who's, I think, one of the highest try scorers for the Panthers this year. So, look, I think they'll be both right to go.
I don't know that I would move Alamotti off the wing, though, with the way that he played last week. But just on Isaiah Yeo as well, I did have him on my brain for a reason. We did see him have a bit of a downtick in terms of stats last week. So I think we did theorise that there may be something going on with Isaiah as well. Be interesting to see how his game goes. I'm going to be watching him very closely for sure, because I do think there might be something going on with Isaiah, and he's just sort of playing through it, which he do at this time of the year. But his surprising drop on the stat sheet last week was something worth noting for sure. It did sort of raise my eyebrows a little bit. So maybe a potential injury there, but he does seem like he's fine to play, so that's good for him. In terms of them benefiting from that lineup not changing, I think it's definitely a tale of two teams here, because, as you say, Brisbane's lineup has been, in similar stances to Melbourne's, has been extremely disrupted all season long. Whereas the Panthers seem like they've finally found their formula over the last few weeks, and they're happy with going with what they've got. I think Penrith are going to show up and do their job. I think they're going to show up and do what they know how to do. I think these young players that have come in for the likes of Fisher Harris and Luai and those players who have moved on in the previous off-season, I think they've finally found their feet in the club now, and they know what their roles are and what they need to do. It'd be very interesting to see how that is tested at this particular level, because that is where a lot of that Broncos side has been there and done that, whereas those young players have not. But they could not be getting better tutelage right now than from the Clearys and the Yeos and the Martins and all those other great players in that side. So I think that's where it will come down to. It'll be the inexperienced players that potentially uh, control this result. But I've got Penrith winning this one still quite easily. It would be good to see a Sharks and Broncos grand final for something different, but I don't see that being realistic at the moment.
Yeah, no, look, I think it's always an advantage having a unchanged team, even throughout the regular season as well. The less disruptions you can have to your side, the better, because then obviously your combinations are going to get better, and your communication will get better, and yeah, just having an unchanged lineup will be massive throughout the year and definitely in finals. Big loss for the Brisbane Broncos is Pat Carrigan, who suspended for this game. He took the early plea again for his game against the Canberra Raiders. I believe it was a high shot, which he did do 10 in the bin for. How much of a loss for the Broncos is Pat Carrigan?
Oh, it's huge. It is a huge loss, Pat Carrigan. I think I expected him to actually get away with what he did. I thought this would be one of those situations that we've seen a million times over the years in this league where the NRL would prefer not to drop a star player from a huge game. It was a very big surprise to me that he did get charged and he did miss this game, because it's such a huge loss to not have him there. It's going to change the makeup of this game completely. He's such a star player for that side, and now they've got to go out there and find a way to replace him. So I think the Broncos are definitely on the back foot from the very beginning here, and now have to come up against an absolute red hot Panthers side who look like they're going to probably be too professional for them.
Well, let's
Big benefit they've got.
Yeah, let's talk about a couple of advantages that the Broncos may have. Having the week off, like Melbourne, is that an advantage? And also, having a 50,000 plus crowd, a sold out Suncorp Stadium crowd, majority will be behind the Broncos. How much are those two things advantages for the Broncos?
Yeah, you're reading my mind right there. That's exactly where I was heading with this one.
Great minds think alike.
Yeah, that's it, 100%. That's why we're both Para fans. Yeah, look, I think that's where Brisbane probably is going to be trying to find that extra point of difference. They will be more rested than Penrith. This will be, I believe, the first time in a long time that Penrith have had to play this many finals games at this point of the final season. So it's probably slightly different in terms of preparation for them. Maybe that is a bit of a disruption to them, because they've usually straight through to the prelim at this stage, and that's pretty much what you expect for them for most seasons. But of course, they did miss the top four this season, so they missed out on that opportunity. Had to do it the old-fashioned way. Not that I feel sorry for them for that, but you know.
Well, yeah.
But it's a huge crowd as well for Brisbane, so potentially a bit of a state of origin atmosphere there, maybe. With such a huge crowd at Suncorp, we do know how that Queensland crowd can turn a game around. We saw it in Origin this year. They get out there, they get loud, and they get passionate, and they can throw off the opposition team. So I think this is going to play a huge role. You'd think Penrith can stay professional and get the job done, but the home crowd in Brisbane this year has shown that it can change a result. So I don't know. Thoughts on that one? What do you reckon? Do we see an Origin atmosphere here?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, Queensland v New South Wales, Brisbane taking on the Panthers. Definitely. There'll be a lot
potentially a revenge game there too.
Well, there'll be a lot of maroon and yellow and white, the colours of the Broncos there. I'm not too sure what colour jerseys the Panthers will be wearing, because I think if the Broncos wear their home kit, I think the Panthers Las Vegas jersey will be too close to the Broncos kit. So I'm expecting the Panthers to be playing in the pink jersey this
Yeah, I
weekend.
would have thought the pink as well.
Yeah, so, and look, funnily enough, the last time these two sides played was actually in Magic Round this year up at Suncorp Stadium, and it was a Panthers home game, believe it or not, but it was played in front of 50,000 people, so it will be a very similar crowd to this game, and the Panthers got the victory there 32 points to 8, so it was a 5 tries to 1 victory to the Panthers. There was a few different changes of players in that side. Both teams on that day, Ben Hunt and Adam Reynolds were the half and 5'8" actually in this game. Billy Walters was the hooker. Ezra Mann was still out suspended for his off-field antics last year. For the Panthers,
Some may call that grubbery.
yes,
I am some
yes,
personally, but
we won't get
yeah,
too much into that one.
Yep.
Luke Garner was the centre for Penrith on that day, and Tom Jenkins was the winger. So there's a couple of notable changes to their side as well. And Isaiah Papali'i started that day as well.
Yeah, they also had Trent Talau at hooker.
Yeah, so look, a few different players there in that side. So that game, Penrith pretty much dominated. Nathan Cleary, he dominated once again. No doubt your thoughts as he will be a key player for Penrith?
I just want to mention that game, actually, that previous matchup. Maybe a little bit off topic, but we can quickly have a little conversation about this one. Do you think Penrith, or not Penrith, sorry, do you think Brisbane should be allowed to be the away team at Magic Round? I feel like that's a pretty big advantage for them. Same with Dolphins, I guess, too.
Well, I guess, yeah, look, I think, I don't think it really matters if they're the home or away side, to be honest, because I think they do
It
it
does
as,
for the opposition team, though, because they lose a home game in their home stadium.
yeah, but I do think, and I could be wrong, that they do get compensated for having a home game at Magic Round for that very reason of losing money if they did have their home game at their home venue. So, yeah, I don't think it matters whether Brisbane's home or away, but no, I don't think they've ever been the home side at Magic Round, to be honest. But I do think they still have the home. They still come out of the home sheds, to be honest. So, which makes
Maybe do you just play Brisbane versus the Dolphins as that matchup? Because then nobody loses out of those two, at least.
I think either club, the Dolphins or the Broncos, whoever's home game that would be when those two sides play, will be played at Suncorp Stadium anyway. So I guess it's probably a wise thing not to have them match up in Magic Round.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. I would be on the other foot there personally. I think minimising the loss of a home game for any other team would probably be the way that you want to go. But nonetheless, moving on to the next point. What have you got for us?
So the players in this game that are obviously going to be of notice and going to stand out. We'll start with the Broncos, the home side. I think, obviously, Reece Walsh, he's going to be a key component to this win. We saw what he did down in Canberra, especially after he came back from his sin binning. He did kick 2 40-20s in that game, so we know that he has a kicking game, which will be crucial. We know Adam Reynolds has a kicking game as well, but we don't know how much of an effect that hamstring injury will have on him doing that. So definitely 100% Reece Walsh, and I did like what he said in the press conference when asked about Nathan Cleary, and he did say, what did he say? He said something like, well, he should be worried about us or something like that. So I did like that from him. Obviously, Payne Haas is going to be massive. He's the forward leader. And we see that week in, week out. Obviously, now with Pat Carrigan out, he will definitely take a bigger role in that. I think Tony Staggs will be big in the centres as well. We seem to see him apply his trade pretty well in this game, or in in big games like this one. For the Panthers, well, I mean, it all leads to Nathan Cleary. We know what he can do in games. He controls games very well. His kicking game as well is sublime. So we know what he is going to do. Outside of Nathan Cleary, I think Blaise Talangi is going to be probably one to watch as well. This will be his biggest game that he has ever played, a prelim final in front of 50,000 people. And he did play in that Magic Round game, but the meaning of this game is even more than that Magic Round game. So I think he will have a massive game. What about yourself? Who do you think for both sides are key players?
I'm actually going to go a little bit off script here. I'm looking at Karapani and Dean Mariner for the Broncos because I did notice a glaring admission from the team sheet was Selwyn Cobbo. I'm a very big fan of Selwyn Cobbo. He's a player that I do hold a lot of admiration for. It's very surprising for me to see him off the team sheet. Now, I know there's been some issues there across the season between himself and Broncos management and some stuff going on there behind the scenes, but I would have thought, and not to say that Karapani and Mariner are not great players, but at this point of the season, when you've already lost someone like Carrigan, would you not be trying to field your best side?
Well, I think at the moment, these two wingers are probably the best wingers at the Broncos. Cobbo's come back from injury just last week, I think. I mean, obviously that doesn't mean anything because we're seeing Adam Reynolds and Ezra Mam coming back from injury this week without having played any other games. So I don't think that means anything. Could he have been out of favour with Madge Maguire to get back into this side? I don't know. He is, I think, moving on at the end of the year.
I think it's more Mariner that I would be looking at here because Karapani does have 11 tries in 11 games this season, so he's definitely not out of favour. But Mariner's got 9 tries and 4 try assists across 17 games, so maybe that's where you're looking at possibly putting Cobbo in. I would hope that doesn't come back to bite Brisbane on the backside, but for my money, I'm putting Cobbo in there.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. What about obviously you probably, well, not obviously, but you're probably going to agree with me, Reece Walsh is a key component to this Brisbane side, and Nathan Cleary for the Panthers side.
Yeah, well, you definitely say obviously there. Those two guys are holding premierships between their fingers right now. So whoever's the first to drop it is going to go home a very unhappy man. I would say. I think that's whoever gets through this game, you've probably got as your premiership favourite, unless it's the Sharks getting through on the other side. Because I, as I said earlier, I believe if the Sharks do get through, they're going to ride that train all the way through to the end.
Okay.
But I've got personally, we had a few conversations in store about this today. We're all expecting it. The majority opinion is the expectation of Melbourne and Penrith.
Yep.
Yet again. I think that's where the bookies have it. That's where the smart money is. But if it's a Broncos and Melbourne grand final, I don't think you see the Broncos get through. But if it's a Broncos and Sharks grand final, that is a very, very interesting matchup because I think the only remaining team that has the capabilities of beating Penrith at this stage of the season, and I know that Melbourne beat Penrith earlier in the year, and I know Penrith are still very bitter on that, which is something I take into account with this opinion. I think if it's Melbourne and Penrith are going to run away with it. But I think the only team remaining that has the capability of getting under Penrith's skin and beating them right now is Brisbane. Brisbane seem to have this magical way of just coming up with the right play at the right time, like we saw in the Raiders game. They seem to just sort of hang in there, and they seem to always find that way to get across the line. So, but then again, I think Cronulla are the team that would beat Brisbane. I think they're in the exact same way. They're the team that has the capability of getting there over Brisbane. So it's it's a mental minefield at the moment with these potential matchups for the grand final. But I think it's going to be Penrith.
Okay, so then you're tipping Penrith for this game. Then obviously, have you got a score line in this game, Penrith and Brisbane?
100-99, I think.
that'd be an awesome game to watch.
No, this game has the potential to be absolutely anything. This could be a 2-0 scoreline. This could be a 100-0 scoreline. It's such a fascinating matchup. More so, I think, than the Melbourne and Cronulla game. I think, if I'm being smart about this, I say Penrith get over the line maybe 36-16. But it's also got the potential to be such a fun one the other way around. But I'll say Penrith 36-16. Give me Alamotti as a anytime try scorer. Give me, who do we want as our first time? Maybe give me Liam Martin. That's a bit different.
Okay.
Give me Liam Martin as a first-time try scorer, and I don't want to say Cleary for man of the match because his face annoys me. But you know what? Give me Talangi for man of the match. A bit of form of Harrow love.
Okay, yeah, no, fair enough. Look, my head says Penrith, I think, because they're 4-time premiers in a row, going for their 6th grand final, 5th premiership in a row. So I think they can win. However, I'm going to tip Brisbane to win because I'd like them to beat Penrith and Penrith not be in the grand final. I know a lot of my Penrith friends will say that, of course you're going to say that because you hate Penrith, but my football knowledge says that Penrith will win, but I want Brisbane to win, and I'm going to say Brisbane will win. I'm going to say something like 16 points to 12. I think it could be I know there's a lot of points in both teams, but I just think, I don't know, it might be something different on the weekend in this game. I will go Katoni Staggs as the first try scorer, and then anytime try scorer, I will go... I'll go the other back rower. I'll go Scott Sorensen as an anytime try scorer.
Interesting. I like that. I like Scott Sorensen.
I think if Brisbane,
that's a good one.
Yeah. A lot of the ladies like him as well. He's a good-looking lad. So, and I think if Brisbane are to win, I think you will find it will be Reece Walsh who will be man of the match. So.
I think that's a pretty foregone conclusion there. Now, you and I are in very unique positions here when it comes to that Penrith hatred, because we do have very significant members of our households that have got to rub it in our face for the last 4 years after we watched our beloved Eels go down to Penrith. So it's a pretty big thing coming from us two gentlemen to back Penrith in, but that's the way that we're going at the moment, I believe. I know you want to go the other way, but I think the smart money's on Penrith.
Yeah, look, I think it will be a replay of last year's grand final, I think, and who knows, maybe the old saying is you need to lose one to win one. Well, that hasn't been in vogue for a while yet, because we haven't seen anyone different take on Penrith in the last 4 years, so... if Melbourne get up, they will be the one to break the trend, possibly. So, look, it'll be interesting to see. Can't wait to see these games. And as I said, if you are a fan of these... Look, mostly Parramatta fans will listen to this podcast, but if you are a fan of these teams, they are the most nerve-wracking games to watch, the prelim finals. Even more nerve-wracking than an elimination semi-final, because you are potentially 80 minutes away from a grand final. So these are the ones that I hate watching. As I said, 2022, I was in tears after the full-time siren. That's how much it meant to me and many other para fans. Ben, what have you got on offer at the Corner Post store this week and potentially this weekend and moving forward? The Corner Post, a proud sponsor of the Para Cave podcast.
We have the grand final shirts. There's something I definitely want to remind as many people as possible about because they are in limited supply. Friday's game, we will have the shirts in Saturday morning, first thing, as soon as I can get them into the store. I do have to go pick them up, so it'll be a bit of a drive out to the warehouse where they're located, and we'll pick them up and get them straight in for the keen fans of whichever side goes through there. When it comes to Sunday night's game, I believe they're getting sent out rather than getting collected, so they'll be out for delivery, hopefully first thing Tuesday morning. But typically it tends to be around sort of lunchtime that kind of thing comes in. Being school holidays and everything, it's going to be a very chaotic day. So if your team does get through and you are in the Sunday game, you're going to want to get in on Tuesday and get first dibs at that, because it's going to be a very hectic day, that's for sure. Looking forward to it, but don't miss out, because these shirts are very nice. They're a very beautiful design, particularly if you support Melbourne. I tend to think that Melbourne's one's probably the best looking one of the lot. Bit of a shame that we didn't see Dolphins in there, because they were, as we spoke about in the last show, they were included and their design's quite nice too. But I think Penrith and Melbourne have the best of the designs. The design choice seems to have favoured those two quite heavily. So don't miss out on them, because you're going to want them, and they're going to be a hot ticket item at the ground at the time. So you probably want to get in there and get them first. Should Melbourne not win that game against Penrith, as I'm expecting to happen, I can exclusively reveal that there is a 5-peat design that is ready to go as well. So that'll be in store as soon as it can possibly be in store as well. If you are a Penrith fan and you do win it and you want one, come down to the Corner Post and we'll have it ready for you.
There you go. And stay tuned to both the Corner Post Instagram channel and also the Para Cave podcast Instagram channel as well. You will get all that information as to when those shirts will be in store and available. No doubt. I love seeing the videos that your mum puts up there on Instagram promoting who's playing each and every week. But I can't wait for the grand final shirt ones. They'll be sensational. So I just wish it was.
And on that note too, with our social media and with the Para Cave podcast as well, the podcast awards are up, and we are nominated. We're in the running there. So I think we've all put up on our respective social medias the links that you can go to vote for us all. We do want to see the Para Cave and the Corner Post getting up there and hopefully getting a mention. So feel free to go to our respective social media sites. If you follow Troy and I personally as well, we've put it up on our own ones too. Would love to get a little bit of recognition for the hard work that we do for the things that we love.
That's it.
Don't be afraid to give us a vote. We would be more than humble to accept an award, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, definitely. I was lucky enough to be nominated for an award last year with the Rugby League Creator Awards, but unfortunately I didn't get across the line. So hoping to go one better this year. Ben, thank you very much for joining me once again. Enjoy your preliminary finals, and no doubt we will be chatting again not only next week, reviewing these games, and but also I believe you got something very special that will release a podcast this week. Something new, something exciting, something a bit of fun as well.
Yeah, we can't exclusively reveal the details of that one quite yet, because I don't want to give Troy a head start on the on the questioning that he's going to be receiving from me on the next one that we put together. But we are planning on something fun for the off season and something different and something that we can hopefully continue on throughout next season as well. Tomorrow will be our first official test run of that content. So we can reveal that it is some trivia content. We have a great deal of ideas that we're working on, and some great content creators that we're hoping to work with as well on these fun things. There's going to be a whole host of different things that we do. Some of them we're going to go up against each other. Some of them it's going to be one-on-one. Some of these things we're going to host together, and we're going to put it out to some other content creators to come up with some fun answers and some fun stuff there. So something I personally have had a passion for a very long time and wanted to do for a very long time. So it's really exciting that we're able to work together on this now and able to bring this great concept to life. So hopefully all the viewers enjoy it. Hopefully we get some new fans along with this content as well, and hopefully everyone has a bit of fun with it, because that's all it is at the end of the day.
Yeah, it certainly is, and cannot wait. I love trivia and I love rugby league, so a perfect combination. Can't wait for it. It will be certainly fun, that is for sure. Ben, enjoy your rugby league over the weekend, your preliminary finals, and we'll chat soon.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. See you next time.